Welcome to I Didn't Sign Up for This, a podcast brought to you by Alzheimer's Arkansas. I'm Carolyn, your host. We are going to dive into the complexities and challenges of being a caregiver to someone with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. This is just not about the disease. This is about the caregiving experiences, the challenges, the mishaps, the miscommunications, and understanding of how this disease affects families, communities, and our society as a whole. Thank you to Elder Independence Home Care for sponsoring us and underwriting to make this possible, to bring this podcast to the podcast land and you listening. In this episode, I had an opportunity to speak with Holly Fish about her personal experience in caring for a loved one in a toxic or even strained relationship. Her insight will give many the ability to care for loved ones when it's difficult. Thank you, Holly, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again out there in podcast land as we talk about those difficult conversations. I did not sign up for this, caregiving and dementia. I'm going to let my good friend Holly Fish introduce herself not because she just know more than I know about her, which she does, but it's probably some stuff she wouldn't like me to say. So, Holly.
Now, you know better than that. I'm an open book.
I know. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Holly Fish. We say that I'm the Cajun Queen of Arkansas. I claim that one. But I am the Director of Communications and Culture for a public accounting firm, EGP, and they moved me here in 2007. So I represent them on every aspect and also have been a huge women's advocate here in Arkansas and a founding member of Women's Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So the real reason you're here today is the uniqueness, but a real story. I like your caregiver for your mother, and not that I like, but I really honor you in sharing your story, because there's a part of caregiving that some of us find ourselves caregiving for people in strained relationships. I'll use that term. You like that? Strained relationships. And you are quite open about how it affects you and what you do and don't like about it. So give us a little background on your relationship with your mother.
So my mother, Jan Fish, she was quite a character, or still is, even with Alzheimer's and dementia. But she raised me as a single mom. I never met my biological father, and then I had several stepfathers, and we had this very codependent, very entangled, at times very aggressive, and very ugly, but also there was still that loving, right? That's your parent.
Yes.
In my case, that was really my only parent.
Yes.
And it was an interesting dynamic. And it was very hard. Mothers and daughters, I think there's an added element there.
Yes. So in your caregiving experience, it's not something you really was excited to do. I remember you called me, it was some years ago, when it just first kind of started to happen, right? And you were not very happy about it. Do you remember some of those?
Yes, I do. I'm still shocked that I didn't see the signs. We all talk about, why we're here with this journey, like maybe what could have caused it. We all have our own suspicions, right? To me, I think substance abuse was a big player. And my mother liked pills, but in her generation, she had fibromyalgia. She had some other things going on, arthritis. They gave those opioids like candy, and they all thought it was okay because it was prescription from the doctor.
Yes.
Well, you mix that with alcohol and everything, and it's not pretty. So there was a reason why I always lived in different cities away from my mother. And so then when this happened, when this really hit me, and I thought, this ran in my family. My great-grandmother had it. My grandmother had it. Don't think I don't worry. But I knew what I had to do. And I'm going to do what I have to do because she is my only parent. And despite whatever was going on, it's who I am as a person. Not everybody feels like that. Not everybody can take care of somebody that didn't really take great care of them.
So in saying that, and I know you have a different experience, can you just bring a little relief to people that can't do it? Because you're a strong woman, right? You're a raging Cajun. Let's be real.
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say that when COVID hit and I was watching everybody on the news in New York, all those people that were locked down, and I just thought, oh, do I need to go get her? What do I do? I mean, your guilt, right? This was a new, I went and got her out. She had just gotten in independent care, and I had a caregiver going in, and I went and got her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was under my roof again throughout that whole process until I could get her back in somewhere. And it was so challenging. You feel so guilty when you lose your patients. You feel so guilty when you yell at them, when you or maybe let's say that you don't hurt them, but you might grab them to move them into the shower or something. And I would cry myself to bed at night just because I was like, I am not meant to do this, and not with that human.
Yes.
And I would have to pray, God forgive me for laying a hand on her. God forgive me for talking to her the way that I did today. But we always pushed each other's buttons. And so don't think just because she's got Alzheimer's and dementia that she doesn't remember how to do that.
Yes.
She does.
Because that's like normal. And she's your trigger, right?
Oof. Girl. Such a trigger.
Such a trigger. So you, every day, so I think, am I right? How do you practice self-care in there? Like, how do you emotionally take care of yourself, knowing that there's triggers, and so you have a kind of dynamic of like, I don't want to do it, but I have to do it.
Yes. I think that's very, very hard. If you don't have an outreach of some sort, and this is what I'm learning now. So I'm looking back, right? Since COVID, I moved her 4 times during COVID because she was very mobile for a person that has this disease. She's not in a wheelchair and walker.
Mm-hmm.
She's Cajun too. She's a little feisty, blonde-headed, blue-eyed, mobile. She was setting off door alarms. She got deemed a flight risk.
I think you called me once, and they were like about to put her out, weren't they?
They did. They sent her to psychiatric evaluation eventually. And so, that self-care, I look back now and I can honestly say that I feel like I'm just now 4 years later coming out from a deep depression of what all that was about, because I was just doing. I was on autopilot. I was just doing what I had to do. But self-care during that, the only way that I got through that was through my circle of influence. And that's why I'm out here today, joining the boards and getting on stage and talking about this, because we have to have that backbone. We have to have the Alzheimer's Arkansas. We have to have the Carolyns. We have to have all those people that are out there to bring you those resources and to let you know you're okay. That guilt, you need to go see a therapist and let that go.
Let it go and figure out how to manage it, because like the loss, the guilt is real. And you say something over and over. Every time I hear you talk, I talk to a lot of caregivers and a lot of people that say they can't do it in strained relationships, whatever they look like. And for you to admit publicly that you don't know, you had to make the decision, but do you ever think about that you really didn't have to make the decision, like, and what that would look like?
Yes. I can honestly say that there is no judgment there. There's no judgment in this disease. If you feel like you are not that type of human being, or if your relationship went even beyond, I had some stepfathers that were abusive. I can remember when she'd go to work, I'd go down in the garage and hide in the dryer.
Mm-hmm.
Did she put me there? Yes, she did. Do I forgive her? Yes, I do. Could I be the one that just puts her somewhere and never think back? No, ma'am. You have to make that choice for yourself, though. There's lots of stories.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people that were heavily abused that may not have the wherewithal to do that. Those triggers may take them back someplace else. You have to know who you are. And I just think that's very important. For me, there's no judgment.
I think that's very important. I think no matter where your caregiver story is or where your tasks are, we are all not made to be caregivers. And I think that's a myth that we think, yeah, maybe we're mothers and maybe we've helped take care, but we all don't have the capacity. And knowing who we are, the self-awareness, it will make maybe even the caregiver experience better, or finding someone who can. And that's why there's so many services and levels of care out here, because to be honest, everybody couldn't do what you're doing. And again, thank you for saying that there's no judgment in that. So, and I also know it's still not pretty.
No, I got a phone call yesterday or the day before, do we need to switch up your mom's medications? She's having some interactions, very inappropriate interactions with people. And I was like, excuse me? So she's apparently the kissing bandit now on her floor with men or women. So I'm like, okay. You got to take it. I lead with humor in life, and I have to. That's my, my comfort zone.
Your coping skill.
So it's my dark humor.
Yeah.
But I just was like, all right, well, here we go, But you have to also understand that when they are in these facilities, that lady that maybe she's going up and planting a big kiss on, is someone else's parent, someone else's mother. They may not like that, right? And so there's different rules to go in there, but finding the right place for her was also a very difficult journey. And you can get into a bad situation, a bad nursing home, some things going on. I mean, this workforce, don't think it doesn't affect those nursing homes. And I don't care if you're paying $5,000 a month for that nursing home, you could still have an aide that doesn't know what they're doing and lots of turnover. And so it's finding the right place, the right staff, and understanding that they are doing what they can. To me, they're doing God's work for me.
Yes. And that puts you in a different part of caregiving. And so I try to explain to people, because putting your loved one in a facility can be one of the most difficult things you do, based on, nobody's going to love your loved one like you. And so, like if she frustrates me, I know what she may do to someone else. I love her.
Right.
So that person does it. So making the decision to do that, it does not change. Explain to how it does not change you as a caregiver, but like maybe your role in advocating for her more. Kind of explain, have you seen the switch in that a little bit?
Yes. To me, there again, you really have to know what you're dealing with and pick your battles. When it comes to, maybe their diet or, what else could be happening if, around them. You cannot control everything. Those people are there to help you. So set your boundaries, where you're comfortable. But, you need those nurses. You need them on your side, But if you see anything inappropriate, yes, you have to be that person's advocate, because they no longer have a voice. But then that doesn't mean that you have to go in there and raise the roof. Mm-hmm. When it's going to happen. Things are going to happen. There's going to be altercations. There's going to be things that you don't like, but you just have to pick your battles, because caring for her underneath my roof, have so much respect for those ladies on that ward, caring for multiple people, not just your loved one.
Yes, multiple.
Yeah, and so I just had to pick my battles, make that adjustment. But I also know that it gave me the peace of mind when I finally got her in the right place. It gave me the peace of mind that I needed to continue to be Holly Fish away from Jan Fish's manipulation.
Yes.
I had to find myself again. That was a crazy journey to me that never ends. We're always becoming who we are and unbecoming who we were. It never stops.
So bringing that up, we had a conversation once, and it really like touched me in a different way. And it was the conversation about you realize that you were never going to get an apology from her. So, you know, dementia affects your brain. If you have Alzheimer's, your short-term memory, and just a lot of parts about your brain. So a lot of people think that they're going to get an apology or see something. So let's talk about when you realize that this is just what it was and you were never going to get from your mother what maybe you wished or desired from her.
So that took me on another journey to try to find a peace within me, you know, and I do think that therapy's huge. You know, I was that tough girl that, you know, was kind of like Joan of Arc coming back from war, right? You say something to me that I didn't like, and it was like I drew a line. I pulled that sword off my back and drew a line, like, cross it, you know. Well, they were triggering me, and that was my fault that I couldn't control that. So I had a therapist one time that broke it down and said, you know, when someone offends you or says something that's triggering that little girl on the inside that's still trying to survive and still trying to feel safe, they think they're talking to the professional Holly Fish that is the strong woman they see. They don't know that they're talking to that little girl on the inside that's triggering her. You have to let that little girl be safe. You have to keep talking to that little girl and get to that place where you have peace. And so I went into a deep dive because I am such a female advocate. I read a book called Mother Hunger, and it's about us needing that hunger from our mothers and about that relationship, but about how their pains, where did their pains come from? What was the relationship with her mother? What was the relationship with your grandmother's mother? You know, so forth and so forth. And it was amazing to me to see how much that was pushed down and how much that is inherently ingrained in you. And so I had to really work on myself. There are some people that level of emotional work is extremely painful. But for me, it was necessary for me to really figure out why she did some things, who she was. And now I can say, you know, I remember laying as a little girl on, there weren't a lot of jobs for women back then. And so she, in between because that's what he was there for, was, you know, to provide. In between husbands, she would work 2 or 3 jobs. I can remember growing up on the floor of a data entry space, office building in Louisiana where she would work her, you know, and do you remember the old recorders where you hit the buttons down? That's how we would communicate. You know, I've been cooking for myself since I was 6, 7 years old. You know, so there's just some experiences that where I'm like, she was tough, she was strong, she still provided, you know, and so I pulled the aspects out and recreated a story that was a little bit more positive, that knows that the tough Holly Fish that everybody sees, where that came from. And it did come from Jan Fish.
Yeah. So, and you realized you were never going to get an apology.
Never. You know, it was too painful for her. So when I say that journey is way too painful for some people, that was her situation. She was never going to do it. The closest I ever got was one day she patted me on the leg and said, "You're better than me." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she just said, "You are." That was it.
And although that was it meant
the world to me because she could see that I didn't have that. My mother never was one that really liked other women. Other women were
always, she was always on the same. And now,
yes. Hey, she's not. There's some men thrown in there too. But yeah, she's the kissing women bandit. But she just didn't. Other women were a real threat to her, and that was an insecurity for her. Well, you know, that led to, as I grew up as a woman and became a teen and had a body, a figure, and was pretty, and, you know, had attention. she spun that on me.
Mm-hmm.
I was competition. So I think that's what she meant, is that I rose above that and she could see that. And plus I was there to take care of her and get her in the right. She didn't like it, right? She fought the system the entire way of the process. But she knew.
Amazing. You are a raising Cajun, amazing woman. And I want to thank you for sharing this aspect of your life because it's not easy.
It's not. And I do feel for those people that have been in way worse situations than me. And if they are just like, I just can't do it, then that's okay. You know, there are people out there that will help you.
That will. Yeah. And if you find yourself doing it, right? I know you said therapy. Anything else you would recommend? If you find yourself saying, I can't do this, but you find yourself doing it anyway.
I think that, I had to also, figure out what was in my life that was adding stressors that was making the situation worse. So taking care of yourself, whether that be, you think at times you always hear that alcohol is so accepted, right? And when you're stressed, you always hear, "Ooh, I got to get home and get me some wine."
You got to take that wine away,
right?
You?
It can lead to, a bottle of wine, maybe 2 bottles of wine, and then you wake up the next day. It makes you more depressed. It makes you more anxious. You can't tackle the issues. You're not clear-brained. And so I had to get real with myself because I was so stressed that I was like, when I'd finally get her in bed, I go to the porch, I get a bottle of wine, I call a friend. And so in COVID, that was during COVID. Mm-hmm. And so I would joke with everybody, I had to do something because I was sliding down that wall fast. And I thought my neighbors are going to be like, why is Holly Fish crawling out from underneath her bushes this morning? I was like, you better get it together, and because I had to stay focused. And so there's just changes in me that I had to make. I would, try to get creative. Go on drives when the caregivers were there, try to go to a yoga class, something like that. Just anything I could to just survive, and give myself that space and not add to it.
So give yourself the space.
Space and grace.
Space and grace. I love to say give yourself grace because you're not perfect.
Yep.
And you don't know everything.
And when you lay there at night and you think about those things, or you think about what she did, or what, back in the past, or what you did recently to put your hand on or whatever, I mean, you've got to let that go. But that if it keeps escalating that level between you and your loved one, you've got to get someone else in there. There's too many triggers. That past is there. You can only forgive so much. It's going to trigger you. So having the resources. That's why we're here today, right?
That's why we're here. And a lot of times I know, like we don't know that there's resources when you are in a caregiving. We don't think about it, right? It's like you kind of stumble upon it. It's not something that we talk about. And that is one reason that Alzheimer's Arkansas and other agencies are here, because awareness is so important.
Yes.
The caregiver needs to be taken care of.
Yes.
They cannot do the job without some support.
And, I have people, we all know that, there are people that have, like senior living solutions. There's people that will come, do an analysis, take you to these places, that, take your loved one if they're still there enough to see, how they feel about the facility. There are so many people that I have in my back pocket now that, let's just say, this does happen to me. What if I do get this disease? Where I can tell you now, I am more prepared, and I know that there are people that will be looking after me, and that will take care of me. I feel more confident than I ever had in this journey, just because of the people that I've met and the resources that I have. And we have to do a better job at reaching the demographic of, you don't have to do this alone.
I want to thank you. You have brought up, and I may have you back later to talk about how you're planning, since, you have the insight that it runs in your family. And if it happens to you, like you're planning, we might talk about that in another episode.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, I want to thank you, Holly. It's always good to talk to you and see you. And thank you again. I can't say thank you enough for sharing these intimate moments.
You are so
that you have here.
It's very important.
It is. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly Fish, for sharing your story of triumph and challenges. Please subscribe, review, and share this podcast. Thanks to Elder Independence for underwriting this podcast. I did sign up for this.